Hi, I'm Jenny Olson from the Christian Institute, and today I'm joined by Stephanus Breytenbach. He has flown all the way from Australia to be here in person to speak with MPs about assisted suicide and why that is so dangerous. Stephanus, thank you for joining us today. Can you just tell us a little bit about your personal experience and why this is relevant to you?
Well, personally, obviously, I would qualify for your assisted dying, and the same would be in Australia as well. And so, just to give a bit of history, is I've got stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and at the time of diagnosis, they had a prognosis of 2 weeks for me because of my liver having so many tumors, and it was busy shutting down. However, at that time, they didn't disclose it to me, so I didn't know it at the time. I only learned about it later. So at the time, they were giving me 4 to 6 months. And yet, even though it was such a bad prognosis, I went and survived that initial prognosis. And then they had to extend it to the 8 to 12 months, which is not normal that pancreatic people live that long even. And then I passed even that. And now where I'm sitting today, a month ago, I had my 30th anniversary of my diagnosis.
Thank you, Stephanus. That's such a moving story and really inspiring. Are you concerned about people choosing assisted suicide, thinking that they would have weeks or months to live, but like you, they maybe could have outlived that prognosis and we'll never know?
My concern is that here in Britain, what they want to propose, over and above the fact that the assisted suicide I'm not supporting, but they also want to make it prompted, where the doctors will promote or prompt you for assisted suicide. And from my experience, when you're going through, you just learn the news and you know your prognosis, and you're scared, and there's a lot of unknowns, a lot of questions. And if a doctor or someone comes to you presenting that option to you at the low point in your life, you're very likely to think, the doctor knows something that I don't, and he knows best, and maybe it's an idea that I should pursue. And to be honest, I don't think it's the best option. There's a lot of reasons for that. But you're very susceptible, even to family that can suggest it, or friends that would think maybe it's a good idea, and you're very susceptible where you would have not chosen something like that in normal circumstances. And the reality is, prognosis is a guessing game for the most part. They go on statistics and the chances, but my situation was so dire. If I may, I'd like to just explain how bad and how dire my situation was. So I lost about 40 kilograms in around 8 weeks, and I was just skin and bones. And then over and above that, I developed ascites, and not knowing exact medical processes and stuff, but the way I understand it is my liver is not functioning properly, and it dumps the waste and the fluids that it's supposed to process. It dumps in my abdomen instead of sending it through your kidneys and so on. And that meant, in my case, my liver was such bad state that they had every 3 weeks I had to go into hospital for overnight, and they would stick a big long needle into my side and then push through into it as tube, and they would then drain the fluid over 8 to 12 hour period. And just to give you an idea, they never drained less than 8 liters, except the last ascites drain or cytic drain tap that I had. There was once that they, for the fact that there was so much fluid, they risked organ shock and they went above the limit of 8 liters and they drained 12 liters. So next time you think about it, think of those 2-liter milk jugs that you go and buy in the shop, and 8 liters, 4 of them fitting in my abdomen, and your organs floating it, and the pain, you can't bend, and you're weak at that point of time. You've lost all your muscles, and then you've got all that pain and the discomfort from all of that, and also due to the chemo and the cancer, my nails turned black. I had sensitivity to cold. I had mouth sores. I lost my hair, obviously. I had 2nd and 3rd degree chemo burns on my hands. My skin on my heels peeled off. And for all accounts and purposes, when all my friends, every time they saw me, they think, that's the last time they're going to see me. Even my own wife of 21 years at the time, she passed my room in the hospital, seeing the old man sitting there or lying there in bed, and she didn't even recognize her own husband. So it was bad, and now I've gained back my weight. I've got a relatively good quality of life, even though I've still got the stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and a little bit of the cancer spread. My quality of life, I would say, is pretty good considering it all. And I can do some things like walking the dog, and or go paddle boarding with friends. Obviously not far, but just casual, rowing a little bit in the bay. So just the significance of the whole change.
Thank you. That's an incredible story. And look at you now. No one would think, walking past you, that you have pancreatic cancer or that you're stage 4. It's really incredible, the change. And doctors never thought this might happen, that you would get better the way you have. In the House of Commons, MPs have been discussing assisted suicide, and the people who advocate for it have said, if someone is suffering, if they have a loss of autonomy and dignity, if they're someone who used to be very active and now are wheelchair bound, for example, like you were, that because of that level of suffering, it would be better for them and they should have the choice to be able to end their life. What's your response to that sort of claim? Do you think that this loss of supposed loss of dignity means that people should end their lives?
Going through all of this, my focus was not on the negative side of things, and even looking at or considering assisted suicide just because of dignity wasn't even a consideration for me, because you want to focus on the positive things, and I found a lot of times when the other people that you talk to that's got cancer, if they start giving up hope, which is what assisted suicide comes to, most of them pretty much die within 2-3 weeks anyway. And what the MPs and what the government should really focus on is more seeing how they can help these people and what they can do for them, because there's a lot of people that can even get healed completely and might move on and have a good quality of life. I mean, in my situation, all the things that I could have missed, all the things that could have happened, thinking back, that if I would have chosen, it's scary to think what could have happened. And if I may, I can maybe just go into it a little bit. My wife also had cancer, and she had a big operation a month after my diagnosis. And then she was in remission, but unfortunately 6 months later, in a routine check, they picked up the cancer spread again, but this time to her lungs. And yet they still gave a 2 to 5 year prognosis. Unfortunately, in her case, she then passed away about a year and a half ago from her cancer. So I've seen the side of a person that's also positive and still went through it, and she died peacefully in the end. She didn't suffer or anything. And a lot of the problems is people are scared. They're scared of the dying, and how they're going to die in the process. Are they going to suffer? And if you go and you educate the people more on what death is going to be like and what they do and the medication that they give. Not that my wife had to use the medication in the end, but there's options of pain medication and a lot of other things, so you will not suffer at the end. And those things they give in the last week or two of your life, and so you don't need to fear the process of dying. They've got medication to help you, and that's proven medication. Whereas with assisted suicide or dying, there's still a lot of the medications that don't work properly, and it's scary that there are cases where people take 3 minutes, a couple of hours, or there's been a case of 5.5 days before they die. And then there's lots of questions that, because it's combination of medication, that the medication that would have made them numb to pain wears off. And then they're paralyzed because of some of other medications. And then they might be in complete agony, and they take minutes or hours or days to still die. And that might be even worse, because you can't tell anyone you're paralyzed because of the medication, and there you're sitting within your own headspace going through that, whereas you're going through a normal process. Those are the things that they don't tell you. They don't want to tell you those kind of things or share it, and that's my concern. If this proceeds like it is in Australia, they're already thinking of changing the laws. Now the law gets in place. What's going to be next? You get diagnosed with cancer, not even a 6-month prognosis or something like that, and they say, well, I want to go for assisted suicide because I've got cancer, because I want my family to remember me the way I was, and not the way that they're going to see me kneeling at the toilet, vomiting and suffering and having pain. And you get where I'm going with this, and why?
Yeah. I'm not sure if you're aware, but in Scotland, they are also trying to pass assisted suicide laws. But in that case, what's being proposed there is even worse than Westminster. It's bad enough for England and Wales, what's being proposed, but in Scotland, they're wanting to allow it for people who are terminally ill, but without any prognosis limit. So someone could have a condition where they will die eventually, but they could have 5, 10, 15 years to live. What do you think about that?
Well, that's my whole point, is that if they change the laws, or if it gets in, it's going to expand. It's bound to expand, where that kind of thing will happen even here, where it will become available for someone that just got a prognosis. And many people go on to live a very fruitful life and a normal life, being in remission for years. And where's it maybe next? If you've got a mental health issue, will they then become available? And like I say, the example of where you don't want people to see you suffering, like family members or your children. I've told my kids about assisted suicide and what it entails, and why people would choose it, that they don't want the kids to see them and remember them the way they were. And my kids thought it's crazy. Do you honestly know what your kids might think? Maybe they're 6 years old and they might just get another 2 years from you and have fond memories regardless of which state you are. They'd rather want you there. I'm not coercing people for that, but because if you're in your low point, you're very susceptible to coercion and people suggesting that kind of thing to you, assisted to go for that assisted dying and so on. But you might not have to. It's not all that bad. Yes, there's a lot that you go through, and trust me, I've been there. There's many times that you feel like, why you still go on, but it's how you focus and just set yourself small goals.
You picked up on coercion. I think one of the most shocking things I've seen discussed by people who advocate for so-called assisted dying is this idea that your loved ones wanting you to live and encouraging you and not wanting you to give up or choose assisted suicide is abusive and a form of coercion. So in effect, that they're saying that when your family, if you had been in a low point and you considered this, your family, your children, your wife, telling you, don't give up, we love you, we want you to live for as long as possible, we want to spend this time with you, they're saying that's abusive. What do you think?
Well, isn't it abusive from the government to then suggest to you to choose assisted dying? Because if I flip it around, where they want to say that the family is coercing you in living longer, isn't the government doing exactly the same thing, just the other way around? And so it goes both ways, that argument. But even then, don't make the decision very quick, because even if you would consider that as coercion, it's still up to you. But you're very susceptible when you're at your low point. Either way, it's you that need to make up your own mind, and you will find that even though you go through that all that sickness and suffering, most of the people will find that they will still want to live. I would almost want to say that, as an example, I went skydiving once, and you sit and you think, this is going to be fun. You sit in the doorway of the airplane, and the next moment you jump out, and the moment you jump out, you think, oh goodness, this was not a good idea. What have I done? Fortunately, there's a parachute. But if you sit and you do assisted dying, and you press that button, and you think in that seconds or minutes, you think, maybe I shouldn't have done this. Maybe I should have given myself more time. That's too late. You can't turn back. Yeah. And look at how many people that survive suicides. If you go and talk to them after they survived, they regret that they even tried suicide. And I think it will be the same for many people that might choose it. So I don't see it as coercion. I think it's just giving both sides of a viewpoint, and the family is your closest people that should be able to understand and know you and love you and support you. It's not coercion, it's supporting you.
Did your family caring for you and friends caring for you and supportive conversations, what kind of impact did that have for you when you were in your lowest moments?
Oh, that was awesome. I have to admit, I'm probably one of the lucky people that has good friends around me and good family. Unfortunately, I've only got my immediate family with me in Australia, and most of my family are not with me. So I don't have their support, but I've got good friends that's supporting and want to help me, and especially if, in my case, from church. So that was good. But even if you're not a Christian, you also get support from the council in Australia, where they come with options on how they can support you, and they've got a list. They look at your situation and things like helping to clean your house if you can't, helping to make you dinners, or providing you with subsidized taxi fares to go to appointments and chemo, and those kind of things help people rather than saying they're becoming a burden for the society. And please, would you take the pill and move on?
Yeah. Now, you mentioned very, very sadly, and I'm so sorry, about your wife having passed after your own terminal prognosis. Can you speak a little bit about what would have been the impact if you had chosen to end your life through assisted suicide before you knew that your wife was given a 2 to 5 year prognosis herself? What would have been the impact on her, and what would have been the impact on your 2 children?
Yes, so if I chose this sister dying at the time in my life, I would not have known my wife would pass away, and she needed support. I was so lucky that I just improved at the right time to be able to support my wife and help her through it all, and be there all the way to the end. I would not have known that, and not knowing that my kids would be orphans a lot sooner than we planned and expected. I'm fortunate that we could set up and sort out all our affairs, and that the guardians are there for my kids, and they're a loving family that can take over. And the nice thing is, my kids will know that I didn't abandon them by choosing assisted suicide or dying, and basically left them. So they won't have that abandonment. They know I gave it all the way to the end, and they will remember that.
You strike me as someone who is very strong, Stephanus, and I'm sure they see that, and that makes a big difference to them, knowing that you're someone who's fought and who's stuck around and who's gone through all the highs and the lows with them. You've been there for them. Can you tell me about some of kind of the positive memories you've been able to share with your children since your prognosis?
Well, since I knew I had limited time, the first thing that comes to your mind is you want to make memories with your family as much as you can. So I didn't let my situation hold me back, and I tried whatever I could to go and make memories. So we went to Tasmania for a week, and we drove around. Obviously, at that time I was in a wheelchair, so we went with the Guardian family, and they went and drove and helped with a lot of the things. But it was a good time that we had, and we could build memories. There was weekend vacations. We did book an Airbnb, and you just go and spend some time with the family on the coast, in a beach house or something. And then after my wife passed away, we went to Japan, because my wife wanted so much to go there, and it was her wish, but unfortunately she was on oxygen machines, and so she could not travel there. But I wanted to fulfill that desire and that promise to her, and take the kids to Japan, and we had fun there, So that was one of the things we also did. And then obviously I can now spend way more time with them and build more memories.
It seems to me that by legalizing assisted suicide, it creates a kind of danger zone for terminally ill people, because it puts forward the possibility, which they might have never considered before a doctor suggests it, of ending their life early. If you had chosen assisted suicide, or if someone like you were to choose it in Australia, where it's legal and you're eligible, and if you had chosen that in the month or two after your prognosis, within the shock, and if you were afraid about the pain and you just saw kind of hard things ahead, and you thought, oh, that's the best thing, who would you say would be culpable? Who would be responsible for your death? Would it have been the cancer? Because the people who support assisted suicide want on the death certificates for it to say the disease, not that people were killed by voluntary assisted dying or medical assistance in dying. Would you say it would have been the cancer which was responsible for your death? Or would it have been the laws and even the politicians who supported it and put it through, who are kind of culpable for those people who've lost their lives?
Well, I kind of would think that in this, the way that I'm thinking about it is, if you go through assisted suicide, I'm thinking of the doctors or the people involved. Even though I'm pressing the button or whatever method they use, someone needs to set it up. They part of how do they morally support something like that, where you allow you're helping someone to terminate life, and it just feels a bit wrong for me in that sense. So over and above whatever they want to put on the death certificate, it's not the cancer that ended your life in the end because you chose assisted suicide. If the cancer would have taken your life, yes, then it's a cancer. Often they put on your kidneys failed, or that's what eventually did cause your life, or your lungs gave in, if it was lung cancer or something like that. So that's more accurate. It's inaccurate to say it was the cancer versus it was a choice you made, and the politicians allowed that choice to be available.
So you've flown this week between chemo. You've got chemo next week and you're flying back tomorrow. You've flown halfway around the world to meet with politicians in the UK. What would be your message to them if they're listening to this? What is the kind of one thing you want them to know?
I really want them to reconsider the bill, and not go for it. I would rather want them to stop looking at the whole bill and all the things around that, and rather look at giving the people hope, give them dignity, give them help. Yes, they say you give them dignity by giving them assisted suicide, but you can also give them dignity by helping them and supporting them in the journey to the end of their life. And the end of their life might not be the 6 months that the doctor thought. You might find that you might go into remission for 20 years or 15 years or whatever. Or in my case, I'm not in remission. I'm still getting my chemo next week. And I'm still going through things. But even though that, it's I'd rather want that than giving up hope. I'd rather want the government to understand helping the people means a lot and gives them a lot more dignity.
Thank you so much, Stephanus. We really appreciate you coming all the way to the UK from Australia, and we just wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For more great content, like, subscribe and hit the notification bell.